Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Rico again. I know I haven't uploaded in a while. Well, with everything going on here, we're just testing the waters here on this one. The last time I reviewed anything was the the DM5R. Well, we found its baby sister. This is the dm-1801 by Radio Oddity. So now there's been a lot of documentations about it, but in foreign languages, but I haven't really seen anything clear cut about this radio and how it works and all that. Okay, first of all, this is a fairly new radio, so this has just come out here about last year, and there was always firmware updates and stuff like that. I got the 2.2.5 version, which I'm not sure if that's the official version or not, but you know what? I'm taking it because I have promiscuous mode on there. I have dual watch, single watch, and stuff like that. And I'm not going to sit there and tell you how to program anything like that because there's multiple tutorials on YouTube on how to program a DMR system. Cut, dry, real simple. If you don't know how to do it, watch it. It's a beast. It's a lot different than what you're used to. It's not like programming analog radios like the UV5R. It's not like the UV82 radios. Those are analog. This is a DMR system. The DMR system is called a TDMA, which is basically, it splits the frequency in half. And it goes, instead of one continuous setup for, a stream, I guess best way to put it. It chops it up in blocks. And in those blocks right there, it'll have the language for what's called tier 1, or slot 1, I'm sorry. Which is, slot 1 will be, one part, slot 2 will be broken up. And so instead of having it go, it'll go like that. It's up to your radio to decide how it's going to encode that. If you have a tier 2 radio like this, you'll do it. If you have a RD5R, yes. Now, the big concern that I had until I just found out when I upgraded this special, I guess you can call it the special firmware, is promiscuous mode. Now, I live in New Orleans, and there's not a lot of DMR systems here that are used public safety wise, and that's fine. But like places like, I don't know, Mississippi, Alabama, parts of Texas, Oklahoma, definitely Arkansas, a lot of DMR systems are being used for public safety services. Good example, where I come from originally, Bradley County, Arkansas, Warren PD, Bradley County Sheriff's Office are both DMR systems in their own right. But the problem is they're encrypted. You can't listen to them. There's a lot of Mississippi systems that are DMR, but they're not encrypted. So that's a good thing if you want to listen to your law enforcement. And this is a great alternative to say, hold on a second. If you have, you don't have the money to go buy something like a Uniden BCD 396XT. This is what I got, and I got a 396T in my car. Plus, on top of that, I've got a Vertex standard radio in my car also. But I digress on that. We're talking about this. But the audio quality on this radio is perfect. You can't go wrong with it. I'm not going to say your experience is going to be the same. It varies by batch setup and who sets who and stuff like that. Now, I'm going to say this. 1.1, I think it's the 1.19, has had issues. The latest firmware update you can get off the website, which is baofeng radio .ca. I believe that's the website. I can't give you approximate. on that, but you know, their latest firmware update does not work with this radio. You get what is called a low BT issue. I am in the basically what the problem is the firmware, I think it was a modified firmware and it was updated and it wasn't set correctly to that radio, because this is a variant of the GD-77 from Radio Oddity, which, by the way, I'm going to be honest, I do NMID for the Radio Oddity website for the RD5R and the GD-77. But this is not the same thing, and if you try to upload it, you risk, one, breaking your radio, voids the warranty. Number two, and most importantly, it may not, you just get a low Bluetooth setting and stuff like that, which is fine. Problem is you do that, you really don't have anything to fall back on, because there's no other places that I can find which has older firmwares. So in my case, what I had to do was I had to find an updated firmware which was not specific for that radio, but it worked. Now, mileage may vary. Like I said before, do it at your own risk. I'm not responsible. Now, several keynotes that I do have issues with this firmware. Not the radio itself, but the firmware. I have an issue, and I'm going to try to see if I can program it here. Let's see if it'll focus. If it won't, there we go. Problem I have is I can't switch between zones properly, because let me see if I can get this backlight turned down a little bit while we're doing it. Okay, the problem I have is okay, I'm trying to get to it and I can't turn down the backlight on it, which that's fine. But when I set up my zones, it'll be zone 1, and then I'll have a blank. Instead of saying zone 2, fire department, or DMR, amateur radio, stuff like that, how you set it up. And I did a test, and I ran through, like, adding 99 zones on them. I would get zones for, like, just example, it would show zone 1, blah, 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 and then have a question mark on zone 3, and then I'd go through zone 7, it would show zone 7, but the rest are blank, or have, you know, alphanumeric characters. And the problem is with that being a problem, it makes the radio unreliable. And if you have multiple zones, and a lot of us do, we go to different places. I travel a lot. I go to places like Florida, I go to Texas, I go to Mississippi, Alabama, I've gone to Ohio, I've gone to Illinois, I've even gone as far north as Wisconsin. For somebody like me, that's an issue, because I don't have to want to sit there and reprogram my radio every time I go in there just to fix the zones. Because then, at that point, you're using your read and writes on flash memory. And we all know flash memory is not unvolatile, but it has a limit on read and writes, just like any other. It's like a hard drive, like anything else. Now, the display, I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but it is actually not that bad. It ain't really. I'll show you real quick here. See if I can switch it up. And I cannot. Okay. YouTube don't want to work with me. YouTube's having a hissy fit. We're already 9 minutes into this video. Okay. Audio quality is excellent. I cannot argue with this. Like I'm going to tell you right now. I'll show you real quick. On analog, it is actually quite beautiful. It is really good. Digital, I've had it pick up on several setups. It's just beautiful. It works great, and it's clear. For a $50 radio, it's blowing past that. Like any other system, you need to make sure that, well, number one, there's going to be kinks with a new radio that comes out. They'll be fixed in time. I'm hoping for that. But at the same time, when something happens, baofeng, are you listening? I know Radio Oddities does have nothing to do with this, but baofeng, are you listening? If something happens with that firmware and we can still recover it, I'd like to have an older firmware just to go back on and download in case something happens. That way I have something to go by. Nothing's perfect. Like I said, I get that. But at the same time, I like to have backups and plans, because I break this because one of your firmwares messes up. You lose customer bases off of that. Granted, I'm one person. Maybe a whole state may not do it. But in time, videos go viral. I'm not wanting to go viral. I'm just being informative here. So, Radiodity. They're doing this. baofeng, you need to do this. You need to fix the firmware or have a backup firmware just in case, because it works for some, doesn't work for others. And I want to make sure if I do that, it works great. Now, output wise, it's great. It reaches repeaters, not a problem. The only thing that I can see being an issue, of course, easy fix aftermarket antenna, are these. We've always had problems with these. We've never liked these radio antennas. These little handheld radio walkie-talkies, they're junk. But for right now, they do what they need. Buy you an aftermarket antenna, ham radio outlet. I mean, they've got stores all over the place. They got better antennas like these. Me personally, I don't care for long whip antennas. It's just, I put it on my side. I don't want my armpit scratched or anything like that. I prefer a normal size antenna like this, or maybe a little bit smaller, or maybe a monoband antenna. That's just my preference. Maybe some of the long people like longer antennas. I don't know. Varies by person. But this radio has potential. Has a lot of potential, but it has a lot of shortcomings that are software issued that can be fixed with proper firmware and stuff like that. Now, connection-wise, radio-wise, I've also noticed that the chargers, is just like the GD77. Great, because I've always had issues with the chargers killing my sound or killing my reception on when I go to charge it. If I want to hear a DMR system about 15 miles away, I don't want to have it throw it on the charger. If I want to still listen to it, I want to listen to it. And I don't want to just throw it on the charger and it go completely deaf. They fixed that. Great. Another issue that I've found, that the software, when you download it, it's Chinese, and yes, you can fix it by adjusting and stuff like that, that's fine, but it doesn't translate to the radio itself. And I've had people who have had to sit there, and I've had to go by numbers just to do this. We've had this in the Radiodity group, the baofeng group. So, my takeaways from this. Great radio for the price. $59. Some are $49. Great price. Can't go wrong with it. Remember though, you get what you pay for with these. And, the battery, I'm one of those guys that I'll tell you, hey, you know, you can't make a poop sandwich taste great. You can't. Good radio. I don't believe this is a 2200 milliamp battery. Maybe 1800. That's fine. If it works, it works. But in the end, again, the takeaway is from this. Radio has great potential. Software has a little bit of tweaking, but not too bad. It can be fixed. Simple switch code. My big thing is firmware. There's so many variants of this firmware that's out there that, it's a pain in the butt. Now, there's a group on GitHub that is talking about this and the GD77 with it being a different variant, but it has the same kind of code plug. And that's fine, but there's no repository, this is not Linux, but there's no, there's no vault for anything where you can download an older firmware, one or two or something, just that way something happens, we have a backup. Remove any defective firmwares from that vault and keep the best one that you have on there that works at that time. You have upgrades, we're beta testers. I'm a beta tester myself. We learned that there's some good, some bad with it. That's fine. And please, for the love of God, you're going to fix it. Ask us to test it before you put it out. Because if you got some Joe Schmo who has never really used DMR, or an older person that, don't quite understand the DMR technology or firmware upgrades, which we used to do when we sent them to the Motorola technician and had them do the upgrades. We have that option now, and that's great, but the problem is a lot of people don't know how to do it, and that's an issue. So, okay, I'll probably be doing a supplemental update on this one right here, a little bit more, and the only reason why I'm just doing one right now is because I had some things that are on my mind that I wanted to get off my chest, and I think that people should know about before buying this radio. It's a great radio. I mean, don't get me wrong, great radio. I love it, and I'm glad I got it. It's going to be a process over the next couple months for new updates and stuff like that. Oh, speaking of getting updates, one more thing. I wish there was a mailing list that Jasmine, I know you watching this, and I love you to death, girl. Not y'all. That baofeng would do to update their customers. If you're a beta testers, here's the updated version. We need you to test it out before we roll it out. And then when it's rolled out, everybody else, new update, or post it on the Facebook groups. Stuff like that. There's no communication between that. And we know baofeng is a multiple international marketing company. But at the same time, you can't put this out and not expect to at least support it for a couple months. Must be the light from the room over there. But in truth, you have a good chance to make, headway in the DMR market with this radio. You just got to apply to it. Same goes with the mobile market on the mobile DMRs. Do something. It's ultimately up to the seller's responsibility for so long to put out a DMR setup or a system that will make your customers happy and make them come back for more when you get updates and stuff like that. Because let's just say finally they come out with a P25 system. Will they? Don't know. Probably not. It's not an international standard, but it's a well-known standard. And if baofeng says, hey, we got a P25 radio, people like me are going to look at you like, you know, I had a problem with their DMR and lack of support. I don't think I'm going to buy it. Just being real. I'm out of here. Y'all have a great Thanksgiving. I'll try to make a video next weekend.